Hello, my name is Christopher Scott from the Biblical Leadership blog at christopherscottblog.com. And today I'm going to talk with you about charisma and why it is optional for leadership. So some of the material I'm going to share with you is from the workshops that I have taught for the Center for Nonprofit Management in Dallas and Fort Worth. And so in those workshops, I'll talk about how to recruit volunteers, how to lead volunteers, and how to keep volunteers. And the first thing that I talk about when we talk about leading volunteers is why charisma is optional for leadership. Because the first thing I always want to do with those people is show them that you don't have to be charismatic to be a good leader. Even though our culture seems to indicate that, research and experts will all disagree that charisma is not a necessary requirement for leadership. And I want to share that with you today. So let's talk about it. So charisma is optional for leadership. Jim Collins, in his book Good to Great, a book you probably have heard of or read, Good to Great by Jim Collins, in here he talks about level 5 leaders. And in here, through his research of researching hundreds of companies over several years, found that there were specific people within companies that were great leaders. And they were not charismatic leaders, as many people would think, but instead they had two qualities: extreme humility and intense personal will. Two qualities: extreme humility and intense personal will. So when they talk about intense personal will, some of the ways they define that is a person has the fierce resolve to do whatever is needed to be done and to make the company great. Another example is that ambition is first and foremost for the company and concern for its success rather than one's own riches and fortune. Determination to do whatever needs to be done to make the company great. Some of the words commonly used to describe these leaders were like willful, fearless, plow horse, frantically driven, results. So those are some of the words used to describe leaders, level 5 leaders. Intense personal will is the first quality of them. And the second one is extreme humility. These are self-efficacing individuals. I have a word, hard time. Efficacing. Self-effacing individuals. I don't know. That's what they use. I have a little trouble with that word. Got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and I can't pronounce this word. Anyways, so extreme humility is what makes level 5 leaders, the second of two qualities of level 5 leaders. Some of the ways that Jim Collins describes them is that they are incredibly ambitious, but their ambition is first and foremost for the institution, not themselves. Quote, the good to great leaders didn't talk about themselves. During interviews and with the good to great leaders, they talk about the company and the contributions of other executives as long as we'd like, but would deflect discussion about their own contribution. Some of the phrases that these level 5 leaders would use were, I hope I'm not sounding like a big shot, right? They're trying to be humble. If the board hadn't picked such great successors, you probably wouldn't be talking with me today. Or, did I have a lot to do with it? Oh, that sounds so self-serving. I don't think I can take much credit. We were blessed with marvelous people. Or another one, there are plenty of people in this company who could do my job better than me. So extreme humility. Some of the words commonly used to describe these people were that they were modest, humble, quiet, reserved, shy, gracious, mild-mannered, it's the word again, self-effacing, that's what it is. Self-effacing, understated, and did not believe their own press clippings, okay? So the example of a level 5 leader that they give in the book is a guy named Darwin Smith, who was the CEO of Kimberly-Clark and ran the company for 20 years and did a great job of it. And people talked about him. They said, few people knew about him, but he probably would have liked it that way. Often you would find that he was a man who carried no airs of self-importance. Smith found his favorite companionship among plumbers and electricians and spent his vacations rumbling around his Wisconsin farm in the cab of a backhoe, digging holes and moving rocks. He never cultivated hero status or executive celebrity status. So, pretty interesting as an example of a level 5 leader that you probably haven't heard of and that I hadn't heard of since until I read that book. So we're talking about charisma. I first described to you what are level 5 leaders, people that have intense personal will and extreme humility. Those are the people that were the most successful leaders in Jim Collins' research about good to great companies. So let me talk about how charisma works against leaders. So in our culture, we tend to think charisma is a necessary quality for leadership and how we have to have charisma to be a great leader. But let me talk to you about why charisma actually works against leaders. First, charismatic leaders sometimes don't listen well, okay? So they want to be the life of the party and they want to have the attention focused on them because they're charismatic, but because of that, sometimes they don't listen well. They sometimes spend more time talking than listening, and when they do listen, they're thinking about what to say in response, not necessarily hearing the person's words, right? So that's the first reason that charisma can work against leaders, is that they don't listen well. The second reason is that they can get lonely. As a charismatic leader, they want to be liked by people, they want to be followed, but if they have to make tough decisions, that can alienate them and cause them to feel lonely, which is not good. Another reason is they sometimes participate in purposeless networking. So if they're charismatic and they're outgoing and they want to talk to people and meet with people and always be meeting and always be talking, and they can say, well, I'm just networking to support our organization, that might be not always productive, but it looks productive, but isn't really. They're just talking to people just to talk. So those are a few ways that charisma works against leaders. Instead, I want to share with you that character and competence are essential, and charisma is kind of optional. Charisma can help you as a leader, as we're all end up landing, but character and competence are really what leaders must have. So, why charisma is optional? Some of the most charismatic leaders of the 20th century were also the worst leaders, such as Mussolini, Mayo, and probably most famously, Hitler. Okay, so charisma can deceive and misrepresent results also. So while sometimes charismatic people can lead people astray, it can also sometimes misrepresent results. If people like you and you're charismatic, but you're not really getting your job done, okay, can misrepresent the results that you have. Instead, character is essential. Okay, I like this quote from Eddie Gibbs in his book Leadership Next, where he says, Americans often assume that charisma, popularly misunderstood as a commanding personality or personal presence, and leadership go hand in hand. I must emphasize that charisma is no substitute for character. Indeed, leaders who have charisma but lack character are a danger to others and often bring disaster on themselves. Okay? So, character is essential, and I love a lesson that I heard from John Maxwell, a guy who writes about leadership and talks about leadership a lot, where he talks about inside-out leadership, okay? And the basic thesis is that if you're bigger on the outside than you are on the inside, you're going to have a moral failure. And the example he gives is Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods was a little bit better on the outside, athletic ability, charisma, than he was. He was better on the outside than he was on the inside, which is his moral character that led to his fall and scandal, okay? So, John Maxwell says, when you're better on the inside than the outside, and when you're bigger on the inside than the outside, over time, you will become greater on the outside. So if you're bigger on the inside than you are on the outside, over time, you will become bigger on the outside than you are on the inside, if that makes sense. So he talks about better on the inside means character, bigger on the inside means spirit, characteristics of inside-out leaders. Inside-out leaders value people more than position. Inside-out leaders inspire others because they are inspired by others. Inside-out leaders are secure enough to appreciate and acknowledge others. Inside-out leaders do not abuse power. Inside-out leaders extend grace and forgiveness to others. And inside-out leaders acknowledge and apologize for their mistakes. And that's from a lesson I listened to via CD called Inside Out Leadership from the Maximum Impact Club, if you're curious for more. So, what to do if you don't have charisma? Let's say you don't have charisma. What does this mean for you? Okay, first thing is don't feel bad. As I have tried really hard to show you, you don't have to have charisma to be an effective leader, right? So if you don't have charisma, don't feel bad. Number two, Don't feel ill-equipped for leadership. As I've shown you, leadership is not, charisma is not required for leadership, okay? Third thing to do if you don't have charisma is laugh, okay? Relax, laugh, and have fun, okay? Charismatic leaders are usually really good at that. But on the other side, people aren't charismatic. Sometimes they're a little more serious, a little more introverted, and as a result, they need to just laugh, relax, have fun, okay? Additionally, focus on the long-term results of your program. If you're not charismatic, you're not going to be super liked by everyone right off the bat. But if you focus on doing your job and doing it well long-term and focusing on getting results, that will speak much stronger about you as a person and you as a leader than your personality and charismatic personality ever can, okay? Another thing is you need to be strategic about having fun. So when I led the nonprofit program, A Day of Hope, I'm naturally not really a charismatic leader, and as a result, I always struggled to celebrate. So when we would do things and do them well, I had to be very, very strategic to make sure we celebrated things. And I said thank you to people, and then I took them out to dinner, and I took them out for pizza to celebrate, and all those things. So if you're not charismatic, be strategic about having fun and celebrating. Another thing, show that you're human if you're not charismatic. Be laughable, have fun, relax, smile, things like that, okay? So, additionally, there's a few things you need to realize if you're not charismatic. I got this from Rod Edmondson on his blog where he talks about 7 reasons introversion works well for me as a senior leader. He says there are 7 bonuses for being an introvert and not being charismatic, right? So these things, he says, think first. Introverted leaders think first and speak later. Introverted leaders are less likely to struggle with the loneliness of leadership, like I talked about earlier. They create intentional moments. They are more likely to concentrate on the big picture. They network intentionally, very contrary to what I had said earlier about charismatic leaders who do purposeless networking. And introverted leaders listen well. Okay, so just a few things that are bonuses for you if you're not charismatic as a leader. So let's say you are charismatic. What do you do? Okay? What do you do if you do have charisma? The first thing you need to do is follow through on your promises and commitments. There was once a charismatic leader that I knew, and this person was always talking about being a dynamic leader, and she's dynamic, and I want to be a dynamic leader, and all this. And she was really funny and really outgoing and really likable, but she never got her work done. You know, it's really a little bit frustrating. So if you do have charisma, focus on following through on your promises and commitments, okay? That means a lot to people. You want to show sincerity if you're a charismatic leader. Be genuine. When you ask someone how they're doing, be sincere. If you give a compliment, be sincere, okay? Be genuine. Convince people that they're not just a means to an end. As an outgoing, charismatic leader, it can be easy for people to feel that you're just trying to use them to get your goals and your accomplishments. So you need to convince people that they're not just a means to getting the goal that you want. And you need to apologize when necessary. If things come up, apologize and mean it. So, and it's good to remember that as a leader, your role is to be effective and to get results and ensure long-term success, not always to be charismatic and super likable. So this has been a basic lesson that I share in my workshops about how charisma is optional for leadership. And that if you're going to be a leader and work with people, whether it's in a nonprofit organization, which is my experience, or in a church or in a business, you don't have to be charismatic to be a leader. So, my name is Christopher Scott from the Biblical Leadership blog. If you want to learn more about leadership, you can visit my blog at christopherscottblog.com. I appreciate your attention and you tuning in today. Thanks a lot, and I hope to talk to you again soon.